Hello everyone, welcome back to the next session on Unix programming. Now in this particular session, we are going to have a look at Unix environment. If you try to recollect, in the previous session, I had told that Unix is available on wide variety of computer systems. And when I say wide variety of computer systems, it includes personal computers, it includes workstations, it includes mainframes, and it also includes supercomputers. In fact, it was developed for, and it is also particularly well suited as far as multi-user environment is concerned. But the best part of Unix is it also runs on standalone machine. And that's why the entire world of Unix environment has got or is divided into two components. The first one is called as personal. We also call it as standalone machine. And the second one is client server, where it splits the computing function between central computer and user's computer. Now, when you look at the Unix environment, as far as standalone is concerned, you can install Unix operating system on any standalone machine, right? And one of the common questions that is asked in interview is, can you install Unix on PCXT? Watch out. Can you install Unix on PCXT with 8 MB RAM and 120 MB hard disk? Okay. Now the answer is no, because PCXT is actually, it stands for Personal Computer Extended Technology, and this PCXT was driven by 286 processor, right? And 286 processor actually works on real mode. But Unix operating system will work on those processors which supports not only real mode, but also protective or protecting mode. So real and protective mode are the two modes for you to have Unix on your machine. And as a matter of fact, all 386 machines and above basically supports Unix operating system, because 386 machines and above work on two different modes or two modes of processor, which is real mode and protective mode. And hence, Unix cannot be installed on PCXT with sufficient amount of RAM and also sufficient amount of hard disk, right? Now, in client server, basically what happens is you have Unix loaded here, you have Unix installed on this server, and you have client, for example, I have given here 5 clients. So these are the clients which actually take resources of the operating system from the server. A typical scenario of multi-user environment. Now, basically what happens is the operating system will be available here, and these clients can log on at their respective time, and they can work on Unix operating system by taking the resources of OS from the server. Now, in this, what we need to understand is Unix will not be stored, or Unix will not be available on the client machine, right? So basically you can boot this client machine through any other forum, right? But Unix will not be available here. It will be available in the server. And then what happens is, as a programmer, you need to establish a connection from the client to the server. And then once the connection is established, you will get login colon on your screen, wherein you will end up giving your login ID and the password, and then you are able to access the Unix, or you are able to take the resources of the Unix. A typical structure of Unix operating system is shown in front of you, you need to basically understand the key components of Unix. And the diagram that is there in front of you gives you a Unix structure, which is actually consists of the hardware part, the Unix kernel, the Unix shell, and it also consists of the outer layer of Unix operating system, what is called as Unix users or application programmers. Now, when you look at the kernel, kernel is actually considered to be the heart and brain of the operating system. As a matter of fact, the kernel is a layer of software that actually sits between the user of a computer and the hardware, which is actually responsible for efficiently managing the system resources. And apart from kernel, which basically controls the hardware of the computer, it resides as the core of the architecture. Programs actually interact with the kernel through system calls, right? More on system calls we are going to see down the line as we progress. But kernel basically is considered to be the brain of the operating system, the innermost layer of operating system. The next is the shell. As you can see from the diagram that shell is not a part of the kernel, but it directly communicates with the kernel. So it is actually the shell around the kernel. Now this particular shell is a command line interpreter that executes the commands you type in, right? So we are going to have a look at quite good number of commands that Unix supports, and these actually your shell translates your command, the so-called human readable format, into the format that is understood by your computer. And apart from that, there is a dual role of this particular shell. It not only acts as an interface between the kernel and the outside world, the shell also acts as a programming language. In fact, the shell allows you to manage your working environment and is language. One more thing about shell is processor, or probably I can say spreadsheet application. Different shells can be used on single system. As a matter of fact, you know, it allows users to work with the shell system appear different to users using different shells. Broadly speaking, there are three types of shells which are commonly used. We are going to go into details of it at a later stage. But as of now, just have the names of all the three shells as Bourne shell. I'll put it here. The first one is called as Bourne shell. The second one is called as C shell, and the third one is called as Corn shell. Just a brief about all these three shells. The Bourne shell is actually designed by a person whose name is Steve Bourne, and the prompt of this particular shell is $. And by default, across all variants of Unix operating system, Bourne shell is considered to be the default shell in Unix operating system. And there is an enhanced version of this Bourne shell, which is called as Bash, which stands for Bourne Again shell. Bourneagain, Bourne Again shell, whose prompt is also $. The next type of shell is what is called as C shell, which resembles most of the time like your C programming language. And this particular shell was designed by a person whose name is Bill Joy, and the prompt of this particular shell is percentage. The third type of shell is called as Corn shell, It was designed by a person whose name is David. It resembles similar to that Bourne shell, and hence the prompt of Corn shell is actually the dollar prompt. Okay, so sometimes it is difficult to find out in which shell a programmer is working, because when you look at the typical Unix operating system, correct? I'm not talking about Unix, but I have worked on SCO Unix, particularly on System 5 Release 4, what we call it as SVR4. Sorry, SVR4. So there, at any given point of time, you will have only dollar on your screen. You will have only dollar on your screen, and with the help of this dollar, it is difficult to tell in which particular shell you are working, because this dollar prompt resembles both the Bourne shell as well as the Corn shell, right? And even though I said that in most of the variants, the Bourne shell is the default shell, Unix gives liberty to the programmer to change the default shell, and also you can work on different shells by being in some other shell. In the sense, the default shell is Bourne shell, but you can change it to Corn shell and work. You don't need to make the Corn shell as a default shell, but you can, basically what I'm trying to say is, you can shift from one shell to another shell. Let us look at the next aspect of the Unix environment, what is called as accessing Unix. Now, what exactly you mean by accessing Unix? It actually has three components. The first one is user ID, the second one is password, and the third one is system administrator's ID. So when you look at the broad world of Unix operating system, there are two types of people who actually work on Unix operating system. One is the system administrator, and the other one is the programmer. Now, for every programmer, a user ID has to be created, and along with that user ID, the password has to be created. Now, the question is, who actually creates the user ID for these programmers? In fact, when you look at the global wide area network, that is internet, majority of you, not majority of you, I can say all of you, have a Gmail account. Now, if you recollect, somewhere down, couple of years back, or probably sometimes back, you would have created a new account or new email ID in Gmail. Now, who has created this account for you? It was you yourself who created a Gmail account. In fact, my Gmail account I have created. Even though a lot of things in the world of internet comes from the world of Unix, there's a slight change. In Unix, the programmer's login ID, or what we call it as user ID, cannot be created by the programmer. It is impossible to create user ID in Unix by the programmer. So basically, the programmer has to take help of the system administrator. Now, by default, the system administrator's login comes with Unix operating system, and the prompt of system administrator is hash. Watch out carefully. The prompt of system administrator is hash. This hash comes with every Unix system. Now, at this hash, this particular hash belongs to the system administrator, whose login is called as root. And this particular login root will always have a password. So in this login and password comes from the it comes as a default whenever you purchase a system. That's what I wanted to tell you. Now what happens is, once the system administrator logs into root and he gives the password, he gets a hash prompt. At this hash prompt, system administrator lands up creating a login ID or a user ID for an ordinary programmer. Now let us say he lands up creating a user ID for me, and my login ID is called as NGP, right? So the procedure of creating a user ID, I'll not deal it as of now, but let us assume that the system administrator has created a login for me, which is called as NGP. And then he also assigns a password for me. Let us say it is called as ABCD. Of course, the password is not visible, but then for our understanding, I have written it here as ABCD. Now what happens is I have an account of my own in Unix whose login name is NGP and the password is ABCD. So what I do is I go to some other machine and then I log in, right? Now in a typical Unix, what happens is when you establish a connection from the client to the server, you get login colon on your screen. Now this is a typical way how Unix looks actually. So I'll have a login colon on my screen, and here I will give the password as, I give the login name as NGP, and the moment I press enter key, it will ask me for password. And my password is ABCD. So I actually type my password ABCD, but then it will not be reflected on, on a typical Unix environment. Please understand. On the other hand, whenever you type a password in your, say for example, in your Gmail account, it gets reflected as ****. But in Unix, you will not even get that star, right? So assume that I have given the password as ABCD and I press enter key. If the login and the password is matched, Unix gives me the $prompt. So this is what you call it as, user ID and password. And of course, the system administrator's ID is root, whose prompt is hash. Now, as I told you, once the login and password gets matched, I will get the $prompt, which is an indication that there is the successful matching of both login and password, and this $prompt enables me now to work on Unix operating system as a program. Now $1 million question that comes in mind is how operating system knows that the login and password that is given is correct, which will enable him to give the $prompt. Now watch out, listen carefully what I'm saying. When system administrator makes an attempt to create my login that is called as NGP and then the password as ABCD, the details of this login and password and some other information goes and sits in a file called as /etc/password. Be careful, all login information will be stored in a file called as /etc/password. Now this is actually a database file which has got a couple of fields, out of which the first field is actually the login name and the second field is actually the password. Now be very careful. /etc/passwd is a database file which has got a couple of fields, out of which the first field is the login name. So here the first field, my login name NGP will be stored, and in the second field my password will be stored, which is ABCD. As a matter of fact, this ABCD, which is my password, will also not be stored as ABCD, it will be stored as X. So if you extract the second field of this particular database file, you will get X for every login. Understand, right? So the password ABCD will never be stored as ABCD in this particular file. Now earlier, this particular file was only available to administrator, but as time progressed, this particular file is now made available to ordinary programmers also. But then the file is available to you all in read-only mode. That means you can only read the contents of this particular file without making any attempt to modify it. And hence what happens, if somebody is under impression that I can view this /etc/password file and I can get the information of the login NGP, and then I can log into that, I can log into that particular person's login. You are wrong, because every person's password in /etc/password file will be denoted as X. Now the question is where exactly your password is stored. For this, there is a duplicate version of this file /etc/password, which is called as /etc/shadow. Now watch out carefully. There is only one difference between /etc/password and /etc/shadow file. Even in /etc/shadow file, the first field is the login name, right? So you will get my login name as NGP, but then the second field in /etc/password, /etc/shadow, the password will be stored, but it will be stored in encrypted fashion. Watch out carefully. It will be stored in an encrypted fashion, right? So now, because the password is stored here in encrypted fashion, and any good intelligent C programmer can always decrypt it, for security purpose, /etc/shadow is not available to ordinary programmers even in read-only mode. I repeat once again, for security purpose, /etc/shadow file is not even available to ordinary programmers in read-only mode, right? And hence, this particular shadow file is available only to system administrator and nobody else. So basically what happens is, when you give login and password, the second field of shadow file is extracted and then it is compared with the password that you have given. Basically speaking, this comparison takes place with the help of strcmp library function. And when this particular library function strcmp returns 0, right? And you know that strcmp function basically compares two strings, and when both the strings are equal, it returns 0. And whenever strcmp function in this case returns 0, that means the password and the login that you have supplied or that you have entered matches, and hence you will end up getting this particular $prompt. So that is the philosophy between accessing Unix, where you have user ID, password, and system administrator's ID. Now let us look into the last aspect of Unix environment, what is called as typical interactive session. Now, typical interactive session means there is a login session, there is a logout session, but what is more important in interactive session is the interaction part, which actually takes place, between login and logout. Now, as far as security is concerned, which we have already seen a little bit earlier, in terms of providing the password for every user ID that is created in the world of Unix, right? So to ensure this security, and organizations on a system with many users, Unix machines employ a system of user accounts. And this user accounting features of Unix provide a basis for analysis and control of system resources. And let me also tell you that every user or so-called programmer of Unix system must get permission by some access control mechanism. And that is why, the security feature plays a very, very vital role. Now, logging in to a Unix system requires two pieces of information. As I told you earlier, that it requires a user ID and it also requires a password. And whenever you give your user ID and password, I told you that you will get a login colon, right? And once you get login colon, you give your username, you give the password, and you get the dollar prompt, right? Now at this particular dollar prompt, you are free to work on Unix operating system. So when you get a dollar prompt, the first interactive session is over. That is called as login session. Then the last interactive session is called as logout. But anything that happens, in between your login and logout is what is called as interactive session or interaction session. So you can run some Unix commands here. So let me give you the dollar prompt here. So when you get a dollar prompt, as I told, login session is over. Now you are in interaction session. So here you can run any Unix command. You can write a C program, you can write a shell script, you can write a awk script. Whatever you do at this dollar prompt is actually called as interaction. So you can write a C program, as I told you, by making use of editor, which is a VI editor. We are going to have a look at it afterwards. Or you can also use on Ubuntu, you have something called as gedit. So you can use these type of editors to develop a C program. And let us say you call the C program name, file name as test.c. And once you have this program edited or program developed by you, you can compile any C program with the help of the command called as cc. Now, when you compile any C program, after you issue this particular command and press enter key, if there are any errors, the errors will be displayed on the screen. If the program is absolutely free of errors, then you will just get a dollar prompt, right? The successful return of the dollar prompt indicates that the file test.c, this one, the file test.c is absolutely free of errors, syntax errors, as a matter of fact. Then you can run or execute the program. In typical Unix environment, execution of the program is done with a command called as /a.out. The moment you give this command and press enter key, operating system will execute your program, and after giving you successful result, it gives you the dollar prompt. Correct? So this is just an example I gave you, which basically falls in the interaction category. And then once you are done with all your task, all your work, or whatever it is, the last interactive session that comes into picture is what is called as logout, right? Now, logout in typical Unix can be done in two ways. Either you issue a command called as logout, or you can also press Control D. Okay, Control D, right? Now, the moment you press Control D, you will come back to your original status, what is called as login colon, right? Now, the moment you say Control D and then you get login colon, that basically tells that you have executed the last interactive session of Unix called as logout. And right from the first login colon, that is this one, till you get this login colon. Once again, you would have completed the entire cycle of so-called interactive session, what is login, interaction, and logout. Now, sometimes you can also use the command called as exit when you are ready to quit. You can type this particular command exit, which is as good as logout. But let me tell you a word of caution as a programmer. Before you leave your terminal, my suggestion is make sure that you see the login prompt again. That's what I have shown you. Please see this particular prompt once again on your screen to be on safer side, right? Now that is an indication that you have successfully logged out. If you have left any unresolved process, which is nothing but a task or an application, the Unix system actually expects the programmer to resolve it before you actually log out. So it is always a good or probably a better idea to clear the display before you log out, so that the next user will not have a single millimeter idea about the information that is available on the screen, or probably about your work or anything else, right? So it is better you clear the screen and then you press Control D, and then you will get login colon. And once you see login colon on your screen, then you can leave from your workplace. So this is all about what is called as Unix environment. In the next session, we are going to discuss about the features of Unix operating system.